Look, thank you. That's too kind a lead-in. I appreciate very much those comments about the sporting background and also the academic background and, of course, the business background. But today's topic is leadership and how it relates to a dynamic culture. Years and years ago, I wrote a doctoral dissertation on the relationship existing between leader behaviour and the performance of a dynamic culture. Research has always shown that the key aspect to creating a productive, coordinated team approach, but a productive culture, has always been the role of the leader. So leadership is absolutely critical, which is why countries spend time with selection of prime ministers and presidents, why companies, again, spend time with looking at the likes of chief executives and chairmen of boards and things like this. An absolutely crucial part of how you create a dynamic culture. And it's the dynamic culture that gives you the performance at the end of the day. So this is, if you like, the leadership is the causal variable. It is the domino that leads to a productive culture, which leads to performance outcomes or results. My research yielded many years ago 5 key aspects, key criteria that constituted leadership and effective leadership, that related to, again, performance, efficiency, effectiveness, productivity, outcomes, deliverables. The first one is there's a vision. I don't care whether you're running Sally's Lolly Shop or Westpac or BHP, you will never be a leader without a vision. Where do you want the Australian Institute of Sport to go? Where do you want the Melbourne Victory soccer team to go? Where do you want this enterprise, this business, where do you want it to go? What's the vision? Now, vision can be in essentially 2 major parts. It can be a qualitative vision, which is the second one up there. We wish to be the preferred supplier. We wish to be the preferred football team in Melbourne. We wish to be something that doesn't have any numbers associated with it, but is rather an inspiration, a qualitative effort. The second one is quantitative. We wish to have certain metrics, and certain metrics are criteria. For example, we want to have a 30% EBIT. Now, EBIT is earnings before interest and tax. There's another concept which many of you in finance in the room are aware, EBITDA. So it's earnings before interest and tax, depreciation and amortization. That in most businesses is roughly around 30%. Now, in my firm, for example, we target an EBIT of 30%. So that's your profit position. You could say, I don't want debt to exceed as a percentage of equity 15%. I wish to have debtors on an average days of 90, 60 or 90 days, 30, 60 or 90 days outstanding. I want to have 42 average days in terms of my debtors. So it's the ability to specify a criteria. The modern language is KPIs, key performance indicators. So that's the quantitative side. Our firm, for example, runs itself through a balanced scorecard. A balanced scorecard has 4 major criteria that it has. First of all, in any business, and this is generic to any business, first and foremost, you have the issue of finances, and I've touched upon some of the metrics you can have. Secondly, staff. The ability of good staff, appropriately fit for the job, appropriately keeping themselves current, appropriately keeping themselves updated with the advances of their industry and the technologies within that industry. Also, the nature of the technology itself within the firm, the systems, the procedures, the updates. Now, this could be CRMs, this could be fintech, financial technologies, this could be many different things. And finally, you've got the area of overall procedures. So that's your fourth one. So you've got the area of vision. So you can have no leadership. You can have no really solid performance within a business without a vision. Number 2, having determined that vision, you've got it in paper. You can bind it in leather. You can put it up in a conference room. You can put it up in the boardroom. You can create brochures and flyers. You can send it out. But what have you got? Nothing. You've got to communicate that vision. And again, an analogy and a saying that I learnt years ago was that he who communicates is he who leads. You will have an image, your firm will have an image, the National Australia Bank will have an image. If the NAB don't give themselves that image, then Westpac would be more than happy to give them an image. Melbourne Victory will have an image. If they don't give themselves an image, then Melbourne City Football Club would be more than happy to give them an image. Maddern Financial Advisers will have an image. If they don't create it themselves, then a competitor firm are more than happy to give them an image. You can imagine too, it would be a negative tilt or a skew attached to it. So he who communicates is he who leads, always the way. The best way to communicate is not through email. I mean, email, not even if you're Will Shakespeare, can we come up with the exact nuance, the exact turn of phrase, the exact meaning. You'd have to write for days to try and put across what you can put across just Q&A, the old Socrates method, face-to-face, whites of the eyes, Q&A right in the room. Now, if you run a manufacturing company, as I've been involved in the past for many years, you would have shift operations. They were 12-hour shifts, and so you'd have 2 shift operations, or if they're 8-hour shifts. So you've got to be there at the beginning of the shift, you've got to be there at the end of the shift, you've got to constantly be there. You can't just give it to the people who work in the day. There's also folks that work in the night. So you can't just have the early group because you like the mornings, you've got the afternoon crews as well. So this is very important. If you're going to communicate and you've got oil rigs, you're going to have to go out to the oil rigs. If you're going to communicate across Australia, you've got to go to multiple sites. If you're in a mining company, you've got to go to Mount Newman, you've got to go to Paraburdoo, you've got to go out to all these outstanding places in Western Australia, way out there. So again, it's important to communicate, and the best method of communication is whites of the eyes, face-to-face, and Q&A. The third key point is to lead by example. This is very important. Don't ask them to get in early if you don't get in early. They won't. Don't ask them to come in on Saturdays if you don't. They won't. It's very important to lead by example. All right? And if you are sitting around an office joking and telling jokes and so forth, you will create that culture. It'll be a gossipy, joke-oriented culture. If you want it to be, again, enjoyable, but at the same time serious and professional, then you need to be serious and professional. If you want people in your office to dress well, you need to dress well. These are the things of where you lead by example, role modelling. And again, it's by osmosis. Not do as I say, but do as I do. So it's by osmosis, and osmosis means by association. You'll learn an enormous amount. In fact, if you talk to people and you ask them, you know, you're a very good manager, how did you learn? Was that at Melbourne Business School? Was that at a particular TAFE program? And they will say no. Years ago I worked with old Jack, and Jack taught me. I learned an enormous amount from working with Jack. And Jack taught me how to manage people. Jack taught me how to deal with conflict. Jack taught me how to get things done in difficult environments. I learned an enormous amount from Jack. And that's osmosis. That's learning by example, leading by example. That's the concept of role modelling. The fourth point is share your success. I mean, I'll just take a little bit from the likes of Winston Churchill. London's being bombed night and day by the Germans, but he never lost faith. He never once gave up. He said, I'll fight them in the beaches, fight them in telephone boxes, we'll fight them in the sand, we'll fight them here, we'll fight them there, we'll fight them everywhere, but this island will never give in. And that's really about success. If you think about it, if you had a chief executive or a manager that was always had negative views, glasses half empty, how are you doing today, Bruce? Oh, look, it's no good. The business is going to collapse soon. Oh, the competitors are tough. Oh, it's harder. FOFA's an absolute nightmare in our industry, this, that, and the other. And it's constantly negative. The whole place will be negative. You need to be buoyant, you need to be ebullient, you need to be uplifted, you need to be positive, you need to be optimistic, and you need to share your successes. Even if a firm is against very strong competition, there will still be little successes. You need to share those. You need to be able to focus on the positives. It's so easy to focus on negatives. A monkey can do that. What's important is to be able to focus on the positives. The fifth one, and this is not understood, and you won't find this in many textbooks, but it's absolutely crucial, which is energy and drive. I have never yet met a tired leader. Leaders start early and leaders tend to finish late. Leaders can't afford to have biorhythm swings. Leaders can't afford to have blood sugar lapses. Leaders can't afford to have afternoon naps. You know, leaders really need to be there at all times. Crises for political leaders come in the middle of the night. They get woken by their security departments in the middle of the night to say this has happened overseas or this has happened or etc. So you cannot be a tired leader. Now this doesn't mean you need to have a flat tummy or to be able to have high levels of cardiovascular endurance. This just means an energy level. Churchill was not fit. He used to sit in the bath and drink whiskey and write speeches. He was not fit. Field Marshal Bernard Law Montgomery once said to him, Prime Minister, he said, I don't drink, and he said, I'm 100% fit. Churchill said, well, I do drink and I'm 200% fit. And the message behind that is, it's not about your stature, it's about your energy levels. And it doesn't matter your age, it doesn't matter your physical appearance. There are just tired people. They are tired. Why? Don't know. But they just get tired. Leaders, true leaders, really don't get tired. You cannot afford to have a sick leader. You cannot afford for them to have massive amounts of time in bed or under medical care. It will lead to impaired decision making. And so key decision making and energy is very important. So it's not cardiovascular endurance, it's not physical stature and flat tummies for men and things like this. It's about an energy level. These are the 5 key principles of effective leadership. I'd like to now turn in our next session after the break towards what constitutes a dynamic culture and how you synthesize, integrate leadership to create that dynamic culture.